Here.
Trustee Cobra, trustee Myers, we have a quorum.
Adoption of agenda. At a regular meeting, the board may take action upon the item of business not appearing on the posted agenda if first, the board publicly identifies the item, and second, one or more of the following occurs. The board, by a majority vote of the full board, decides that an emergency as defined in Government Code Section 54956.5 exists, or upon a decision by 2/3 vote of the board, or if less than 2/3 of the board members are present in a unanimous vote of those present, the board decides that there is a need to take immediate action and that the need or action came to the attention of the district after the agenda was posted, or the item was posted on the agenda of a prior meeting of the board occurring not more than 5 calendar days prior to the date of this meeting, and at the prior meeting, the item was continued to this meeting. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Jackson moves, Myers second. All in favor, aye? Any opposed? So noted. Public comment. Public comment on individual agenda items. Members of the public may address the board regarding items on this agenda immediately prior to their being discussed by the board. This meeting is open for public comment.
So does public comment, does that mean I can comment on my after school program? The $25 an hour. Yeah, no.
Members of the public may address the board regarding items on this agenda immediately prior to their being discussed by the board.
So is it on the agenda? I don't know.
I do not.
It was on your agenda last night and you guys tabled it. Is that right?
No, you got all approved the last meeting.
Really?
Yeah. What they changed, everything got approved.
Oh my God.
Did you have problems?
No worries, our mistake.
I'm sorry.
Not informed.
Somebody told me last, yes.
Your social staff has been cleaned.
Oh, my regular after school.
Just for the, from the
Yeah,
time that we said to the end of school,
Yeah.
yes.
May 22nd to the end of, to June 16th, temporary rate.
Okay, carry on.
Get that for them. Thank you.
You just wanted to carry on.
I did.
I wish you guys all well.
Got a smile on your
There are no public comments. We shall move to action items. Action 3A, approve the
I have a
LCAP.
question
Oh,
about the
question.
agenda real quick, because I don't see on the agenda anywhere for just regular public comment on any item. It's a special meeting.
It's a special.
So that's why they can't come and.
Yeah,
comment on
and
it.
special meetings, we can just limit it to what's on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Good clarification, trustee. Action item A, 3A, approve the LCAP known as the Local Control and Accountability Plan. I turn it over to Superintendent Lane.
So you've all had some time to look over the document. This is the time to entertain any questions. If you want me to go over every expenditure and each goal, I can. Starting on page 28, but it's pretty similar to what we had last year, except what I added last night, which was the Director of Special Education position, which came as a recommendation from our tribal groups to have a separate position. And also to reclassify the Indian education tutors to become cultural consultants at each site. That was another change. But other than that, they're minor.
I had a question.
Yes.
It's now on page 39.
Okay.
I don't remember what page it was in the other LCAP.
Go to,
But Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, that's still in there, and I think it's still in here on page 9.
so in my second draft, it's out of there. I just struck a line through that.
Okay.
That's how we're actually paying for the sped director is using that money.
So
And
we
I just
are
wanted-
pulling out that position.
There's no assistant superintendent for student services. Yes,
I want to bring up just one thing. We're going to reclassify the Indian Ed, whatever they are, yeah, tutors or whatever, we're gonna reclassify them. So they're gonna have a new job description and all that.
potentially, yes.
So
Yeah,
it's just negotiable. That's all.
Correct.
That's
And I
all I want.
realize that.
Yeah, that's all I want to say is it's.
But it could also, result in an increase in their salaries, where they may have
Yeah,
been stagnant down here.
Yeah. but
Now
you
we
wanna-
could use them in other capacities, and the MTSS or the grant that Scotty just wrote, the community school grant, has positions in there that could really help. We had to plant, but we can create new ones where these people could potentially jump into them.
I just.
Well, right
Wanna
now.
bring
they're
that so we
asking
don't
for
get
them
in
only
trouble.
to service one grade level, like the end of first grade,
Yeah.
beginning of second grade.
Yeah, it's been like that.
That's it,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And so when Erica got hired, Erica wanted to change that, the new director. She said, no, I want to have what's happening in Orleans Elementary happen at all the sites, which is like the contracted service position with Chuck Hillman. Right? He does it all. He doesn't just say, I'm a first grade tutor, I'm a second grade tutor. He does cultural projects. He takes them on gathering trips. He's the guy.
It makes sense. It makes sense. As long as we,
Yeah.
as a district, fill in the gap because kids need to read and
Correct.
it was valuable.
And there's SFA tutoring that we can
Yeah.
hire more people in those type of
That's-
positions.
yeah.
That's also part of the community school grant.
Right, because I think the cultural components pushed a little more will help our children as far as the drug abuse issues also. Keeping them really based in the culture as much as possible. And help them eventually read.
Next year, we'll have a completely different template for the LCAP, and we'll start from scratch. So all of us will start from scratch month one of this process. I just, I'll have a better idea of what worked, what didn't work. But we are keeping our art TOSA. We're also keeping our cultural connections TOSA. They're still in there.
What's a TOSA?
A teacher on special assignment.
Okay.
And the problem, the difficulty with TOSAs is that when we don't have teachers in the classrooms, it's hard to justify having a teacher specialize in a specific area.
Agreed.
Are we doing any special for the SFA? I was reading Von Dragon's report and she was suggesting it's supposed to be one for.
It was Miss Tina. Miss Tina had to step into Paige's position at first before we hired Brittany Marino after he resigned. So then to take this position, and then following that, then this other person did. But we actually pulled her for the time being to be that. And so there was a disruption of service, December, January. I think the new one came on about February.
So she's back out.
She's gonna be our PPS counseling intern next year at Huba Elementary. And that's funded from the community school grant as well. Oh, Miss Tina is scheduled to be a TOSA, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And Sarah Owens, or Sarah Mitch Owens, she's the second TOSA. She's still teaching, yes. She's still there, yes.
I didn't know.
She's not Mitch anymore, and I call her that every once in a while.
Well, is that, so it is, our TOSAs, then they don't have a specific classroom then, so I think each thing do a special assignment. And they're doing the SFA.
The cultural connections TOSAs, well, there were two, one of the elementary, but that one wasn't filled this year at Dr. Kemple's request. The second one is at the high school. They do have classes every period, except for one.
Oh. They teach it longer.
They teach classes.
Well, I make the motion to approve the local control and accountability plan for 2023 to 2025. And I second.
Motion by Hodge, seconded by trustee Jackson. And we have no votes. All in favor, say aye. Are there any opposed? Motion passes, no opposition. 3B. Approve the 2023-2024 budget adoption. I turn it over to Ms. Hostler.
You have a- Take a look at our budget. I provided a general fund multi-year projection sheet, so that just breaks it down into.
So the third column, so that's going to be 25, 6.
Yes. Okay, so again, you're looking at our budget adoption, what the years projected. We have the revenue. We delineate between unrestricted and restricted. So our unrestricted funds are total of 20 million. Our restricted is 7.9. Our total expenditures for unrestricted is 16.1 million. Restricted is 12.6. We transfer out 525,000 that goes into our cafeteria budget. For offset the cost there. We contribute.
That's for in and transfer out, but it doesn't say that.
It does not. It's just that this document is, it could transfer out into, say, a building fund. It's just a generalized transfer outline. And I'll tell you what page,
Whatever.
I'll tell you, yeah, we'll tell you what page to look at. So you're going to see all the funds that we do have. So the next line you'll see is the contributions to restricted, and that is 2.6 million. That goes into our expenditures that you see line for the restricted. For certificated salary, I'm gonna go to my little budget and development sheet here. If you we'll just go into the document. I'll show you.
Is the document in the, that's nice.
It's in last night.
Oh, I'm like, but what am I?
So if you do go to the last pages of the document, you're gonna see this an overall snapshot of what you're seeing on the cover page. Might be easier to follow on the cover page because it is. Just so you know, the back pages is where it breaks everything down, including what's in our records too. So
This page here, the right,
this one,
is that the one you're talking about, or which one?
this is the already defined year,
Yeah.
and you can
Okay.
see it's pretty clear.
Okay.
And when you go to number 90. And 90, page 90, 91, and 92, that is also the snapshot of what you're seeing on this cover page. So we're gonna go between those two pages.
So there is no 90, or still at 100.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 191?
190.
I'm looking at the part of the document.
Oh,
It's in the very back. Wait, 184 and the.
Oh, yeah, that's a big packet.
191. Okay.
So our LCFF revenue is about 13.8 million. And with LCFF, there's different components of LCFF. There's the base grant, and that's the uniform base grant for each school district and or charter school if we had one, based on the grade span of pupils. Kindergarten through third, fourth, and sixth.
Oh, you're wrong.
I'm gonna give you the numbers here.
Oh, okay.
For LCFF. That's. I'm letting you know what that revenue, what it could, how we can see.
The 13.8.
Yes. The grade span adjustment for grades 9 to 12, adjustment of 2.6% of the base grant per ADA. supplemental grant equals to 20% of the adjusted base grant multiplied by ADA. And the unduplicated percentage of targeted disadvantage. Targeted people who are classified as English learners. They meet income requirements and clearly use one. Concentration grant is LTFF equal to 55% of the adjusted base grant multiplied by ADA. And the percentage of targeted pupils exceeding 55% of the school district's enrollment. And on the transportation add-on out of LCFF, we are at the year 12-13 funding level. So what that means is that we receive about 737,861 for transportation in that grant. So that's part of our transportation budget. However, we also contribute even more to be able to cover materials and supplies and to be able to salaries and the increases, stepping column every year. And so with our LTFF, it's based on our average daily attendance and our cost of living. So with our cost of living, that percentage this year was 8.13% for cost of living. Our average daily attendance was 866.60, and remember, we're a year behind. We're always a year behind based on our numbers at each building. And you flip the page, you can see what our COLA and our district expenses are. I've provided a history of what our COLA was in 1819, what our average daily attendance, and what our increase was based on the LTFF COLA. And that's stemming from 1718. So you'll see the difference each year across how much more revenue we receive. And you'll see that there are some decreases through the years. However, there was a large increase, and that was during COVID, and that's when we were, there was no fluctuation whatsoever.
So when you were showing a decrease, is that because the ADA went down?
Or COVID monies went away.
Right.
The LCFF money.
Okay.
So when you're seeing a decrease that year, our ADA went down. It on 2021, you're seeing that you didn't even get a COLA. And so therefore it was just that base value rolled over.
So that's why there's the.
Yes,
0.
yes. However, for 23-24, you're seeing a negative. So that 8.1 COLA, we got less as compared to last year. And then you can go down that list and you can see that when we're talking about the COLA, the things that you need to look at is what the true COLA is. For example, you need to include any salaries that were negotiated. That would be part of the COLA for that year. So you take a step in column, because when you have step in column, that is an increase. Those are increases year after year. Your stirs and PERS, and again, this is taken from the prior year, the difference each year between the years.
And they increased quite a bit this year.
Quite a bit, yes. And utilities. So you'll see some fluctuation in the utilities getting more and more expensive. And you'll see the total amounts of what salary negotiating, with those costs for stirs and PERS, you'll see that they're added up. When you take that and you deduct it from what the actual COLA was for the LCFF, we always hear we got COLA, extra money. We actually, as you go across, you'll see where we spent more than the extra COLA. So just so be aware of that when you have these discussions about the COLA, that taking everything into consideration for a COLA and what the COLA actually is. We spend more. We've always spent more, except for the 22-23 school year. Moving ahead already, we're negative 806. When I say negative, I mean we're already spending into that COLA based on how much we were receiving. for LCSF. So is that
Based on
correct?
attendance.
Based on attendance.
That one's based on attendance. for this
Yes. Attendance.
So we lost about almost $1 million in revenue.
We did 2.3 million here from from year before.
With 2.3 million we got, this year we got a negative. We're in negative.
No, that's the difference. Those are the differences between the years. So that was the increase of 2.3. This year it's being, okay. So you're absolutely right.
So, yeah.
It's over 2 million.
Right off.
the top. Can't keep that. So 1% of our average pay rate is about $138,000. So you're an increase.
So when you'll hear the unit members say, they don't care about that. It's not their job to worry about that, but it's everybody's job.
Yeah, I'm on page 7, right? Yes, and I completed it.
Okay.
She just went.
Well, that's eating into the.
Yes.
We'll go out. So if we see the COLA, does that become our base budget then?
Yeah,
The next time that we see? Or does it go back to what it was for?
I mean,
Or
yeah,
something
there's
similar?
So
I guess I'm just trying to understand and how that, and then.
So I actually put in a description of the cost of living hit of what a COLA is for, how it comes about. It's from yeah, it's the percentage change in the annual average value of the implicit price of fund for state and local government purchases of goods and services for the United States.
So when we receive that, is that then calculated in the next year as our budget? So like,
It's in this year's budget,
and
so that
that becomes
COLA
our,
is here,
okay.
and that's our base. There would.
And then that becomes the
That's the
base
base.
for the next time that they give us a goal.
Well, for next year, then it's projected. So when we get a projected COLA, and that's based from the May revise that the governor puts out. So this is the governor that sets these numbers down.
So if we have a projection, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to, where we're gonna last.
The projected, the next 2 years are just that, projections. This year is there. However, the governor is coming out with his budget. It could change in August. They could, the governor could approve a budget and it could change. Well, we've gone through all the process of approving our budget. Absolutely. And this, again, this is the process that we go through. What I just remember what Fred said, it's never perfect. It's perfectly incorrect. It's just a fluid document that you just. That sounds like my house budget, so yeah. Well, you I get it. With your projections, you know, it's there. And that's what the plan is. What can we do with what we do have? We need to make sure we can meet payroll. And right now, our reserve is 1.7. And our payroll is around 1.5. We only have like 5 weeks of payroll. That's actually in our reserve that we're not touching. So you're aware of that. So we're just 1.5 about 1.7. If we were to, it just kind of give an example of what our savings is. We would be able to cover 1.5. And if it ever came to that, and I don't see anything like that. We're ahead of the game and our plans are already in place and we never have to do something like that. Going back to the budget document, the cover sheet of the multi-years, you'll see that our salaries next year start at, certificated salaries start at 7 million. Our classified salaries are 4.5. Where are they?
She's got the budget. First one, cover page.
Into the line items. It's
It says 102
combined million. Okay.
restricted, non-restricted.
Yeah. Employee benefits are 6.2. Books and supplies are 2.1 million. Operating expenses is 7.7 million. And I'm gonna go into that one a little bit more. And what that means is we have one-time monies that carried over. And those one-time monies, some have plans, some don't.
So when we carry it over, if they're large amounts, some of our ESSER money, they're pretty large, we put it in an object code for other operating expense. So that seems very high. But then what you'll see in the next year, it goes back down to 2.8 because those fundings go away. So just so where it seems very high right now, because we have this year to spend and or, see where we're at. We're going to, so moving forward, we have capital outlay of 542,000. Other outgoing is 609. And the indirect cost, of course, it's from restricted is about 187,000. And so we have an ending balance of 4.3. Now, when that then moves over to our projected years. A lot of times that helps us. If you look at the increase and decrease in the fund balance, you'll see that the expenditures, again, were deficit spending. And by 1.3 next year. We are deficit spending in the second year.
Where do you see the 1.3? Where are we looking at?
Down the line here.
Okay, gotcha.
So when she puts it in parentheses, it's.
It's a deficit.
And you can see across. So I just wanted to give that first year snapshot of what that looks like in this budget. And again, our budget is based on our projections, our enrollment projections. We have our average daily attendance. We're out of that COVID waiver mode, so we have to, in a sense, look at our trend based on where we were at last year and how is that going to look. We don't overinflate and we don't under. We've always been a nice even trend. We've never had anything fluctuate to where there was concern of how our funding was coming in. So I pride my staff in providing that information and keeping track of those
Accurate projections.
Yes, so I'm very happy with what they do because that makes a big difference.
And remember, Fred explained to us what happens if she over projects or under projects.
And we've always, like I said, I pride my staff in helping with that. And so when I talked about the page in the 191, you can see these are the out years. So this is the current year. The 191.
Or the back on that.
So what you see on 191 is a reflection of the cover sheet. However, it takes into this back page shows what our reserve is, 18.87.
So in your projections,
Are you
you're
on page
taking
90 or page 91?
191 in the back. So in your projections, when we are deficit spending, you're taking the deficit right out of the. Right out of
balance.
So we're able to sustain. You can sustain the deficit because she's taking it out of the general.
So we have a beginning fund balance.
So it's coming out of our reserve.
No, it's coming out of our beginning balance.
And are you on page 90 or 91?
191.
I know, but mine doesn't have the
Look at the
one.
bottom and the bottom.
Mine said 90.
So did mine, but then mine also has 191. So that's
Oh,
why I
I know.
started better. I started with page 90 and everyone said there is no page 90.
Because I don't have, I have them in that.
90 and 91, 90.
Yeah, these were from our packets and you got.
Yeah, I got
yours
mine
from
from the desk.
Oh.
So that's why
Page
I'm
90.
asking.
Page 90.
Okay.
You guys want a page 90?
No,
Because I have 90 on mine too.
Oh,
Here, there's
okay.
191.
So this 18.87
Oh,
is
one's
better
from
than
the
what we
packet, one's from her.
had in our last budget, whatever we did the last time.
Yes, so what that
It was
means
only
is
14 point something before.
it was. So we're taking our beginning balance. And again, there's a projection. We haven't done our unaudited actuals yet, but that may change as well. And then we start building our budget upon what we currently our snapshot of where our beginning balance was. That then helps us carry over, even though we're still deficit spending, it helps carry over into the next years to create a beginning balance for the following year. and so on and so
Well, if
on.
we're deficit spending, isn't the gonna catch up? I mean, isn't it?
It could eventually
So
catch up, yes.
Right.
We're always gonna be wary of that. And our required reserve is 4%.
Where's that?
That is, I'm just talking in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
Okay, it is actually at the bottom of the page, though. It talks about the recommended minimum reserve is 4%, which is 1.1. However, in our reserve, we have 1.7. And our, like I was explaining, our payroll is 1.5. And that's on, I took a general payroll of around November, because that's pretty much when we're at our highest peak of employees. People, you know, we're hired on, everyone, we're rolling, versus once you start getting closer to April, May, June, you start losing employees, or there's docks, or it's so many different variables. So taking that snapshot of November, it's kind of a fresh
I've looked at it enough.
look at it. That's a pretty good
So if,
take.
in your budget projections, are you projecting a 3% across the board at all?
A what?
3% across the board?
No, that is not.
That's not in this, okay.
No, it is not.
Okay,
That
So,
would be a little more deficit
Yes.
spending.
yes.
that's not, yeah.
But just to speak on that, I would recommend that. That's what I would start off with as an opener.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question because you always hear the striking on the news and stuff. How if the unions go on strike and the district, are they just not really giving them as much as they possibly can? Is that what's happening? Because I don't see, like in our situation, we wouldn't be able to dig up any more money if they went on strike, because it's just not there. So what do these other districts do? Do they start out lowballing and work and let them strike and then go ahead and pay them more?
I think when
Or do they
we,
take out a loan?
Put another go bond onto the ballot next year.
Is that what they do? Cause I just, no, I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
It's not always money too.
That's true, but I'm
Sometimes
talking
it's
about the
working
money, because
conditions.
you hear it's always, you know,
Yeah,
they're looking
yeah.
for higher pay, it always says higher pay.
Like 15% or.
so, well,
How
we're
do
not,
they do
we're
that?
not getting those the details. So for example,
Right.
Northern Humboldt did it 8%. That 8% is for 2 years. What they did was restructure their salary schedule. And for the first year. And I don't know what that salary restructure looks like, or what it could have been 7%, and next year they only get 1. I don't know the details of it, but it was structured as such. So instead of 30 steps, I think they backed it up to 20 now. So they're bringing their steps down. We did that a couple of years ago when we restructured, for example, the classified salary schedule, and that ended up being a 6.5 overall. So when you're talking about
It might not be the
increase,
money that's coming
yes.
in, it might be just creating more money by restructuring something.
yes, so it's again, you gotta get the details of how to do it, and the 15% could have been over 2 years.
Yeah, right. I got you.
And then you got the medical caps as well.
Yes.
Some districts don't offer what we offer. They all offer less, so the difference comes out of their employee's check.
Right.
We're still not seeing that.
Right.
So with this budget, and it has one-time funds, another one-time restricted money is our comprehensive support improvement grant. That is for Trinity Valley and Lupa L. That's about 300,000. They would do some points. That is for student improvement at graduation rates.
Attendance,
Not.
Yeah, no, it's low performing school.
So there's a plan that's in place to probably go about improving our students. So that's, what else, we're about 5 years now. 3 to 9 when this money started, they've been receiving these extra funds, and it's a federal fund, but it's a restricted fund. How you can't plan. So
Give us an overview of what we spend this money on, just generally. this particular pot of money, the 300,000 at
Not
these two
yet.
sites.
Well, we're waiting, we'll have to wait for the CIMSAS to come out to see how they want us.
Personnel probably.
No, personnel would, yes, I'm sorry, yes. The TOSA. I think the TOSA would be one that's not
Those doses are just one.
this one. But again, it's up to the school sites and it has to be within their system plan. And then they'll let us know what it is if they want to see.
This year it was 300,000.
So is it,
150 of each.
yeah, I know it's all there, so I can. Is it, cancer plan, so is it feasible to put LPs in classrooms with it if they're not there already?
No, not with this, not with this. Because we already paid for LP. You might want, you would be able to get a, say, a reading tutor, something in addition that you never had before. You can get pretty creative with that.
Nurse. In the class, so
But there's paraprofessional.
So we can't just call it
Can't just-
LPs. And
I mean,
you go with
just have
that.
to get- You could go, you could label this app, make it instead of a literacy, I mean, you know, there's many different ways you could do, but federal dollars are very restricted. And there is some, we get federal program reviews on this one, and you know, it's be wary of that, that's very,
what year are we in the 5-year cycle?
so we're just trying to
This will be the first year one.
yes. For that. And so then we still have our one-time money with some ESSER, which we're still finishing up there with a couple more years of ESSER money. Our ELO, the opportunities grant, receiving more of that. And overall, in our budget, 50, as far as the 50% of it is LCFF revenue. 39% of it is federal revenue. 7%. You guys are like this.
yeah, but that's the other package. It's in this package. Yeah. Right? This one,
No,
no.
it was sitting on your desk when you, yesterday.
Was it?
It's a single piece. It's a single piece of paper. There's in one page, single piece.
There's looking at the graph.
There you go. I see it. Yes.
You found it?
And
There's
so
not too many people.
we have, our state revenue is at 7% and our local revenue is at 4%. So local revenue would consist of, for example, our bus grant. That's about $164,000. And local revenue would consist of our E-rate refunding that we get. For technology. Our local grants would be, you guys just approved one for Orleans Elementary, $850. And that's kind of, you know, we may not know what these amounts are, but we kind of take a pretty good gauge at.
Does property tax revenue come out of here?
That's LCFF.
Oh, wrong.
So what about that community grant that we just got? Where does,
That one would be a state grant.
that's the state grant,
That
so is
one's
it
not
in
here.
here, not here, because it'll come down.
Right.
That's good.
Haven't
So,
received the GAN yet.
so,
We'll get the GAN, sign off on it, and then we'll start the process.
So at first interim, we'll get another snapshot of our budget.
And that'll conclude it then, probably.
We'll include it, yes, and it'll also include any changes that the governor may have in August. And so we'll see some changes, like I said, it's a fluid document. And I just added some declining enrollment, I know it seems kind of silly, but we declined 10 students from last year. There's a little graph there.
Only 10?
Yeah, but that makes a huge
I
difference.
know,
So
it's
our
a huge
attendance,
difference, but I
though,
thought it might
would
be.
be really,
The enrollment went down 10,
yes.
but the ADA
Yes.
went down drastically. Way more.
$2 million. Yeah.
And then you can see what our projected COLAs are for our LCFF for the next couple of years.
They're going down, dude.
Yes. And that is what I have for you in a nutshell. There's. I really don't see. Any concerns except for our attending. Yeah, I do see concern, and that is with our SCF funding. Based on the blue document that you see here, it's a true reflection of what we've been doing and how we operate. And when we do have COLA company and what our actual costs are, it's pretty eye-opening. It's just eye-opening. Every time we hear the extra money, well, we're already into it with this stirs and burrs. We're stepping out there. Yeah. And so I can't really talk about the stepping column for the teaching salary schedule because there's really no, it's all over the place with the percentage between versus or classified with that restructure, they'll automatically get a 3.5%. And once they get to the 7th column, 3 more columns are added, then it's 1%. Just so you know, those last 3 columns are 1%. So you can kind of gauge.
At 10 years, it's 2.5, right?
And at 10 years, they get longevity, which is 2.5.
15 years, 2.5.
Yeah.
20 years, 2.5.
Yeah, so it's 2.5, 10, at 15, it's a total of 5. And so
It might be something worth being creative on. Like you said, if you say, just say, you give 4% or something, but you give 2 this year and 2 next year, we may need to look at more vacation pay. I don't know, something outside the box kind of thing, like
Everybody's
vacation.
pushing me for an admin day on July 1st. Right, like, or 3rd, excuse me, yeah, they're all wanting me to make a decision, so something like that is free.
Admin day.
Yeah, they want me to.
Fourth is on a Tuesday this year, so they want an admin day.
Which I haven't answered yet.
You take some vacation.
We tried to look at restructuring, we tried to look at restructuring the salary schedule so that there was more consistency, like.
that was for the teaching.
We tried to do that, but the union was not willing to consider that.
You did do that though.
No, not for the teachers, we did for the class.
For class,
For
like,
class,
oh, you
but
mean you
not-
try to do that for
We tried to do
certificated?
that, yeah, for certificate. But the way that it panned out, I think that the teachers on the back end of the salary schedule didn't feel like it was equitable because
Well, that's what happened with
Beginning
classified, but they
increase.
really gotta get it.
so it's really something that I hope that the unions will look at because it doesn't make sense. I mean, that doesn't make sense. The way that it is.
And so with also with the new template that's coming out with the LCAP, that's gonna be brand new, so that's gonna be, I can't wait to see what that looks
We're
like.
all gonna go through.
This is where we start planning again. This is where we have the discussions of the directions that you want in the budgets that, what are we looking at? And again, you guys are already looking at your priorities and what the costs are. I mean, we can definitely give you the cost of positions that we do have. What programs do you want to bump up or what do you want to focus on? And just moving forward. The best time to do some revamping is as far as positions. And when we're talking about positions and looking at those, if you're looking, I don't know if you were to eliminate or add, it would be in March, the March 15th. So always remember, you're going to add that way. We know in our budget, or we can start putting that into our budget. But you'll see where we're at on stepping in. So how would that look? Would you have to make any other adjustments with any other position? Again, that's part of your guys' plan, right?
I did see on the news, it's a side note here, Fred Van Fleet had resigned this.
What? Yeah,
Yeah.
in January.
January of 2024.
Yeah. When was that?
He's resigning us.
He's not gonna be the superintendent. He was telling us he had 6 more years or something on his contract that he just got renewed and I don't know. He hasn't shared why. Maybe he knows something we don't know.
Well, I did read that they were having problems with the funding for the that new project he was doing, and that was like stalemated because they ran out of money. No one was sure where they were going to Pick up those.
That's been a big bone of contention with his population because unlike here, people sell their homes at a higher rate, the turnover's greater, and every time you turn it over, that debt gets passed on to the new home buyer. Property tax, it goes up, then it goes up out of the property tax bill that.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
I will move to approve the 2021 budget adoption.
Second.
Motion by trustee Colgrove, seconded by trustee Brett.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Okay, this is.
Any opposed? So noted. Approval of 23-24 budget adoption is approved. Action item C, approve the resolution number 23-70, 2023-2024. Education Protection Account, also known as EPA. Ms. Hostler.
Okay, and this is just a procedure that we need to do. In order to, we had our public hearing last night and let the public know that our education protection monies will be spent on instruction, which will be salaries. It's about 3.1 million that we will put into a resource for 800, and that's the EPA account. This is just for the year. I'll post this on the website. I have to have that posted, so once it's approved, it'll go on the website.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 23-70 for the 2023-2024 education protection account. Second, with edits.
No, that one was the two.
Yeah, it is. I have edits.
Oh, good. Okay, let me know.
Motion made by trustee Hodge. Do we have a second?
Great.
Right?
Yes.
Seconded by trustee Bray. Call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
I'll give this to the county.
None noted. No opposition. Resolution of the EPA is passed. Action item 3D, 2021-22 audit corrective action plans to approve the 2021-22 audit corrective action plans. Ms. Hostler.
Okay, so as you're aware, we had a very, very late audit. And this is again, this is a formality that we have to do. We have to provide our corrective actions to the state. It goes to the county first, and then it goes on to the state. So what you'll see is that we had 4 findings. The first finding was the, and I don't even have what the finding is on it because we don't have to specify what it is. We just need to let everyone know what the correction is. And what it is, we have to get approval from the state that for any capital equipment for our one-time money, we had some one-time money, did a purchase. We did turn in a request from the state after the fact. We're still pending that approval. So we're still waiting. It's just have to show as a credit. I mean, it's to be paid a finding yet. So we're hopeful we're going to get an answer.
Is that number 91 or 93?
Well. I'm the one that audit.
93.
Now, audit page number is what you have.
Are you sure? I'm looking at.
Yeah, you skipped 91.
Oh, that's what happened. You skipped.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so audit adjustment. So this finding was that we are supposed to post the fair market value adjustment in our budget. We post it, then we take it out. It literally goes in and out. And it didn't happen last year. So it was a finding.
No, it's actually 21, 22, not my tenure. Okay, everybody know that.
Yeah. So we literally have sticky notes
Fair market value of what?
of the properties.
All our properties?
Yes, of the throughout the county. They gave us a number. We have to go online and look to see what that is.
Put it in your.
Put it in the budget and take it right back out.
Well, I saw on the news the other night
That's
that
a step.
all of Humboldt County, and they're saying that all of Humboldt County have been underassessed in all their property taxes, and they're gonna make adjustments and people are gonna have to pay lump
Yikes.
sums of money. to get-
I locked my gate, they can't come to my house.
I mean, it's their fault, right? It wasn't the fault of the landowner. They just.
Well, what happens is when you sell, if you ever sell your property instead of just moving on to the next or will it to the next person, you're gonna have an increase in your property. But if you do like joint tenancy, which is what my mother and I do, then you can avoid that. Side note.
Unless you build your own home, then they come out
Oh,
and assess you.
They will.
They don't go by just what you spent on to build it. They
Oh, they fly.
They
over and
tax you on your
see
flat and
the
everything.
building, you live on this.
It doesn't seem fair, but they do it. They go through your house and see all your appliances and they assess it all.
Wow.
So the next one is audit page number 95. And what this was, is that we have to. The Department of Industrial Relations. So whenever we have a contractor that works on a project, they have to get a number. And one of our vendors did not have a number. And so I'm gonna work with Missy, the transportation.
This happened in the transportation budget.
No, this happened,
This was the vendor that used.
yes.
Okay,
So we're gonna establish a procedure guide, so on how we do that. This one just slip through and that's okay. Now we're going to create a procedure to make sure that we don't have this.
So you're saying like having a bus fixed by someone that didn't have a state number or prevailing wage.
No, it was construction.
So it's building
That
that.
building, yes.
So they have to go by, because they have to pay prevailing wage and they have
Yes.
to get their, I get it.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. And the thing of it is, the information that we did provide the auditor, they had. Their payroll was certified, so I'm not sure.
You might have, but they might not have had the correct prevailing wage judgment. Because there's several different ones in there for different years and different
Is it different in
counties.
each county?
It's different in the counties, so they could have just had the wrong.
All right,
So
because
the certified payroll would have just been incorrect.
and then on. The audit page 96. This one, the report, the final report for one of our special project fundings that we had, it was changing out our lighting. This has been for years. And I'll just give you a little bit of back history. There was no information floating around. We literally had to go online and find this because it was prior to, it was at the beginning of the mold stuff. And so our construction manager at that time this is why we got the money. You know, they wrote the request for the money and it took a long time to research. What does this even look like? Why are we, at any rate, we ended up doing a final closeout, but it was late. Like the final. And
Independent study.
attendance independent study. This one, I put, because we in general have to work together, and that's why I have it, that we need to work with each site administrator to ensure that the independent study program at each site is complying prior to the reporting deadlines, and the procedures will be addressed to ensure that all records are in compliance with the law. So what happened, we were able to get a waiver, so it's not gonna cost us anything. Or we're not having to pay anything back. Is that? Again, our ADA, we claimed all this ADA. When in fact, paperwork. Out of all their testing, none of them were completed. And we would have been in, was a pretty serious situation in regards to that. We'd have to return some of our revenue. So this year, you know, again, with our administrative meetings, Jennifer's had meetings each month where she'll address certain issues that may come up, or, you know, deadlines that are happening, to work with our administrators, giving them the guidance and the documents that they need to really look at it. If they then, you know, going to do the push, they have to go back to their staff and be able to give them that information. So they're aware of it. They're aware of what the finance issues are. How do we comply? If we don't have short-term study now. So it's like that. Whereas before, kind of more long-term, you hire, you give extra salary to the teachers who took on reach their site. They're say we're unable to, unfortunately, you're higher on that. It's like just one. Nobody.
But then we have an audit finding, even though we paid more money, we had an audit finding.
Because they're not turning the complete, when an auditor looks at an independent study student file, they'll just pull a random one, they'll open it, and they're gonna make sure that we have all the paperwork filled out, whatever, their contract. Then they're gonna check and see if there's a sample work packet in there, so that they can see that it's completed, not a blank one, but the one that the student completed. And when you don't have that component, that file is null and void and you can't use it. So
Or
that's
if you're
your
missing a
finding.
signature.
If you're missing a thing.
You're missing a signature for
Yes.
the parent, the student, the teacher, the principal.
So could it be that the teacher just didn't know they were supposed to put the work packet in the
Perhaps.
file? I mean, the communication.
There was various, it was all over. It wasn't just
Yeah.
one
It was
specific.
various, because I read some independent study with Merit.
Well, Merit takes over the independent study.
But it's
Yes, class, yeah, for everybody, it's on independent study, for all of that. curriculum. So there was another kid in another class who was with another teacher, who the parent didn't even pick up the work. Didn't even know they were supposed to, so that happened, so I don't know.
And they miss a week.
Yeah.
So then if an auditor looks at the attendance for that week and says, oh, look, the district claimed that the person did the work and is here, but look, I'm looking in the file and I'm not seeing that. There's
Yeah.
There's just better communication.
Yeah, it was really, and it was a file drawer that we had to go to, you know, and open up the file drawer, the parent did, and take out the independent study work. It was crazy, but it was so new, the independent study, because it was across the board. It was just. But it. I know for this other child, it got fixed because he was a classmate of my grandson, so my daughter, of course, made sure they were. Yeah, doing all that. You must get you caught up here, you missed this and that. Yeah.
Trustee Hodge?
I have a question on, because what happened like with my son with the, because he got COVID. And I think something similar happened with Vista, but he was at the high school. So I mean, and he had to be out. I took him to the wellness center and everything. He had to be out for 10 days. So I called the school and said, well, how about a different study? Where can I get a packet for him and yada, yada, yada. And they said, well, no, let me swear, what's his name? And I'll see if any of his teachers do a packet. So his teachers didn't even have a packet, and she said, well, you gotta look on Aries and you'll see his assignments on Aries and just do the assignments. So he looked, so I had him look on Aries, but he had no assignments on
So
Aries.
if the teacher doesn't post it, then it's not, you know,
He
listed.
can't do it, so the school get no credit for him for that whole 10 days then, because he tried, I called 4 times to get a packet. And I said, well, he doesn't have any assignments on here. He says, there's gotta be a packet or something. So there you go. So that case, the school didn't get any money for him and he just didn't do any work. But those are the kind of things I think we gotta fix. Because, you know, because yeah, I mean, I mean, at the first, when they're first sick, they're too sick to be really for a case, right? But if they have a packet, when they're still testing positive, they do their packets, they get it, turned back in.
And I think it goes back to that communication.
Yeah.
Like, she was sick and she was out for 10 days and I heard that she was diagnosed with mental wellness center. I asked for a packet, I asked for independent medicine, they said, no, she has COVID, she was the experience.
That was a really corrective action.
That's why I wanted to ask her, I thought, well, maybe it's because he had COVID, so he fell into a different category. And that would be illness, but you could still, to keep up the grades.
Do the work and he, you know.
How we can't get ADA if they don't do something.
Other if people are sick. Or is it they're just not?
Excused
Only if
absence,
they're
yes.
on independent study.
They're
No,
still thinking it's excused,
No.
right? No?
no, butts and seats. Butts and seats.
Unless, but if they're doing a packet, I think that.
Well, if you're
It was out the hour.
Yeah,
hour
independent
study.
study,
But yeah, that's-
independent studies.
Right.
If it's all filled out, then they can get it, but
So am I mistaken that just listening to this conversation, it sounds like Superintendent Lane in her management meetings will address this future independent study scenario with all her administrators. I have a question of who is our current independent study coordinator, or do we even have on staff?
We don't have,
It would be the
Is it
teacher.
something Superintendent Lane would entertain, or do you think that's not a good idea?
I think the site level administrators can serve in that capacity.
Fair enough.
They can. And if they can't do it because they're too busy, they can say this head teacher or this TOSA or somebody, hey, I need you to do this in addition, and that would be additional duties as required.
Could we put a time frame on that and say that would have to be designated by the second or third week of the calendar year, academic calendar year, to make certain that independent study is
so have you,
mitigated?
Used to be.
just a suggestion that you have your end of your attendance people in the loop, knowing, because really, when I was doing that, I was the one that said, oh, I need your signature. Oh, I need your signature. Oh, I need to call that student in because they didn't sign. Or teacher, I need some kind of work for this student because I have nothing. Can you please? So I kind of, as it, I was the secretary, but whatever, we didn't have attendance up there, but they have attendance clerks at these schools down here. So at least they could be in the loop and help the principal with the duties, type thing.
And I think emphasizing to the teachers too, because more recently, my daughter went on a trip, she requested independent study and she had to keep asking for it in
Yeah,
order
that's
to get it.
done.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened with me, and I never did get any, and the secretary said, well, that teacher doesn't do that.
And they have refused. Teachers have refused.
Yeah,
They say,
So I don't know if they're making the connection. If you don't get the attendance right, you're not getting your raise.
that's what
That's what we wondered too, Leslie, are you okay?
the coalition between ADA and the funds that come into the district needs to be everybody's
Everybody's
on their mind, everybody's forefront.
It just helps student programs this way.
Yeah, because
Are running.
then the kids get they get the programs they need, the tools they need to do what they need to do to.
Because some kids really stress out when they're out sick. My little sister she really stress out because she'd be afraid to fall behind. So that's why I'm always all over a packet. If, my kids had to be out. So they didn't feel that anxiety of going back and being behind. It's huge for kids. Unless you're Kadushka's daughter who does her packet in 10 minutes. Worry about it.
That's all I have on the corrective action.
So I would move to approve the 2021-2022 audit corrective action plans and approve the 2021-22 audit corrective action.
Motion to approve by trustee Colgrove. Do we have a second? Who's gonna claim the second?
I got Jackson seconding.
Jackson second.
That's who I heard since she's sitting right next to me.
So it is approved, the 2021-22 audit corrective action plans to vote. All in favor, say aye. Any opposition? There is no opposition noted. This motion passes.
So you see on the page today.
Does it kind of-
Then
We move to action item 3E, approval of science adoption of the Twig Science for K-8 grades. The total cost for 5 district elementary schools is $510,342.10. Please approve the adoption of the science curriculum, Twig Science for K-8, Miss Superintendent Lane.
okay. I'm gonna read some of the notes that Karen and the committee and the piloting teachers sent to me concerning this.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Before you even start, Ms. Lane, I'm just, so on the front here, that Trinity Valley Elementary School is not listed as one of the schools, and I would just, is that just the? I know that they participated, I think, in.
No, we have
Pilot.
teachers in grades 3 and 4 test the pilot.
But yeah, but I
was just a typo
Just
on
on
the
the
front.
front, okay, I just wanted to
Oh,
confirm
we
that.
didn't include Trinity.
Yeah.
Valley. They're
Well,
included.
it
We'll
said
make a
Jack
note.
Norton Orleans and Pequon, so I think that there was a duplication of Jack Norton and Pequon, and they left out Trinity Valley. I just wanted to
Okay,
confirm.
thank you. Maybe.
Yeah.
I have it on my report that they participated.
Yeah,
Okay, so a recruiting email went out to all K-8 teachers to form a committee. We initially attracted 9 teachers. 7 teachers completed the pilot representing the following grades and schools. Trinity Valley, grades 3 and 4, Hoopa L, grades 1 and 3, Orleans, grades 5 and 8. We reviewed curriculum online and narrowed our search and made orders of pilot materials. We met in grade spans with Dr. Morago from HCOE to review the next generation science standards and curriculum options in print, as well as the curriculum rubrics. When
what is
material,
that?
like we looked at there's some science materials right back there in those boxes, as a matter of fact. So when you're done, you can pull one, take the teacher edition and look at, so what a rubric is all this areas that it's going to cover within science, like that.
Okay, kind of like an index.
Correct. Sort of, yes.
Syllabus.
Or, yeah. When materials arrived, we met by curriculum groups with reps for PD and initial setup. Teachers implemented the curriculum and taught as many lessons as possible by the end of the year. Teachers met as a whole group with Dr. Morago and Mrs. Cole to discuss the progress, likes, and concerns. Mrs. Cole and one pilot teacher met with the IPP committee and had samples for review. We had an in-depth discussion and the committee made recommendations for the process. See below what we like. It's K-8, it's teacher-friendly, it's colorful student materials, it has digital components, it has kids for hands-on learning, and it's the next generation science standard aligned. Concerns. It wasn't reviewed by Ed reports, not as robust as other curriculum, technology not set up easily.
Who is Ed Records?
That's just some,
Or Ed Reports?
Ed reports is some group online, I guess.
And what is NGSS?
I just said it. Next Generation Science Standards.
So
So then,
made recommendations.
Yeah.
oh yeah, they voted, so I'm going on the second page here. The pilot committee recommends that KTJUSD adopt Twig Science for grades K through 8. But before we vote, I need to bring up a point of contention about how much they're asking for.
Well, that was gonna be one of my questions. I was gonna say,
So I'm looking at
the comparison of costs. Actually even thought about or is.
Well, I don't, okay, so let's do that. Let's see what their estimate is, because Carmi's $510,000 for science. We didn't spend a portion of that, I mean, for the math curriculum. Quarter, yeah, even that. So looking at this, it looks like Carmi's telling me we have how much in the budget? $300,000 in the budget. So maybe we only want to approve up to that amount. And then we'll have to look at another funding source or something to pay for this. I don't know why it's so much.
Well, I was hoping Karen would be here. or
Looks like we
somebody
have-
would be able
Well,
to-
she took her exchange student back to the airport because they're going back to the country that they're from. I don't remember where.
Because I was wondering about that cost also, was written my name note.
Yeah. It looks like it's everything. I mean, we have single users, we have modules, we have.
Is it going to be expensive to continue utilizing, like, is there a cost, like, do you have to do new kits for next year or new supplies for next year?
I would say that there's a consumable component, and we can go look at it, like I said. And that those consumable components would need to be replaced each year.
Well,
But
this
I'm-
goes up to 65 and 75 years. What is that?
So,
On page 27, go. Comment.
We're gonna need a little bit more direction in regard to what's included as to the budget, because we, in our curriculum account, through supplemental concentration, we have the 300,000, so that would be a change with the LCAP plan. We just explain why.
I'd have to move some money from there, which is not impossible. I could do it, but as a board, are we gonna spend $500,000 on science? I guess that's my question.
We have other costs associated with keeping the curriculum for the body.
That's it.
That's when, do the other curriculums have costs that are going to need to rely on that 300,000?
Yes, that 300,000 is a part of the supply. I mean, of our supplemental.
No, I guess I'm asking you, so the curriculum that we purchased, are there costs associated this coming year with that curriculum?
If we don't get this, you're saying the one that.
Is this money already
The math,
earmarked?
We've already did the math, so that's come out of this fiscal year.
That was like 182,000.
So my question is, I'm not saying it correctly, I guess. The $300,000 that we have, is that earmarked to supplement or to what did you call it, the consumable costs? Are we going to be needing to buy things for the curriculum that we have already?
I've not received any orders.
According to the estimate on page 26, the refill bundles, this looks like a 5-year cost estimate. It looks like they did the consumable stuff for 5 years instead of 1 year. So that could also contribute to why the cost is so high. Because we're
Storing.
5 year.
It's 75 years, 70 years, they're up there and there's money's already.
So the other
In the
program
price
that
that
we were using, is that then outdated and that's why it needs to be replaced?
Yes, and this is a new science adoption year coming up, so we're trying to get ahead of the game with our teachers because our scores are so low and having, standards aligned adopting curriculum for them right off the bat and then train them on it over the summer.
It's 75 years, and we just wanted to 75 per year, for the year.
You think that it looks like that
Because it has a 431 per unit, so we were to multiply that by 75.
and then they have 5, so that's the number. I'm wondering, did anyone who's heading up this pilot project, did they ever consult with either of you regarding what type of budget they were looking at to be able to?
They didn't consult with me.
Well, I think that's, that's gotta be at the top of the priority list from now on. These things that you're gonna, pilot something, you need to make sure it's in the budget,
125.
So I think we should continue this and probably get more information and find
We're
out.
not meeting again till August, and then when I come back to work, I always already wanted to have this stuff here. That's my problem.
We're in a situation where we have to live within our means. as
Well, I know.
And it
So
sounds
I
like
need to
we're getting
come
directed
here
From
Cole.
Ms. Osler, that this is probably, Ms. Osler, would you agree this is something that is alarming and encroaching on that fund? And we should probably look to move this to an August decision with some direction to perhaps look for a program, a science program that we can live within our means in this district.
Or if this one can be whittled down,
Yeah, what is the cost not purchasing 5 years worth of equipment?
Yeah.
Just purchasing one.
1 year.
So it's not like.
it's not clear, so.
So the quantity is over here on the side.
Yeah.
So that 75, it's 225 individual, so I'm thinking there, taking that. Divide by
Approve the
3,
budget adoption.
225 divided by 3 is 75.
So you just approved the budget.
Mhm.
You tell me what the priority is that you would like.
Yeah, but why
It's
75?
not my
That's
decision.
for each
Your
grade.
advice is
So
necessary.
you gotta tell them you
We're
buy-
approaching within $300,000. This is in your business opinion, this purchase for a $500,000 science project, science curriculum is questionable for our finances.
I think that you need to redirect the questions back so that it's explained a little bit more as to.
Why they need that much money and.
Well, why they do it far over?
I
Is
just
there
think that
another-
they,
is there-
when they do a pilot project, every department, and if they're want a curriculum, they should address the budget first.
Otherwise, it's a.
Otherwise, it's a waste of time, because we have to live within our means. We have to, it's just like building a house. You know, and you tell your engineer and your architect what your budget is, and then then they give you these plans that cost 3 times as much. It's not gonna work.
So is it possible, trustees, that we could send a committee amongst 2 or 3 of us to meet with, correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent Lane, Miss
And Ms. Cole.
Miss Cole,
In fact, I'm
and
trying
talk
to
about,
text her right
and
now.
talk about what
I
our
put her on speaker.
options to maybe salvage 1 year of this program for more meaningful costs? Or
I would
do we have to
recommend-
look somewhere else?
Let me see if she answers, okay? Because she's headed this whole thing.
And if that meets as a committee, who is willing to meet? Ms. Cole, Superintendent Lane,
Yeah, I can meet with them.
so trustee Jackson is one. Could we get at least
I
2
can go,
others?
do you want to
Karen.
Trustee
Karen, you have
Hodge?
to talk to us about the middle of the board meeting, and the board has questions, so I want to put you on kind of a
I
speakerphone
would love to
and,
commit to you guys, but you understand my scenario.
Okay.
And I can't be,
All right.
I don't know, I'm on the road for sure next week.
okay, so Karen Cole is on the line, and so we're to the item where we're trying to adopt the Twig Science for K-8 grades for next year, but we're sitting here tongue-tied because the total cost estimate for the 5 district elementary schools is $510,342. And we're wondering, one of our questions is this for 5 years of using the program, what we're purchasing, the estimate, the cost proposal, or is it for 1 year and that's the cost? Kind of looks like it.
I
So
hope so.
which one is the 1 year? What is the, do you have it in front of you? Can you reference it? How much was 1 year? I mean, I'm looking at the price quote. I can't. Okay, so here's one that says 132,816. And it looks like it include everything. So that looks more reasonable. That's on page 24 of what I'm looking at.
And for 1 year.
Yes.
There's all the consumables that could get added in there. As well as the price to stay because there's a digital component to it.
Okay, so what we need to let you know, Karen, is, in the future, if we pilot these things, we're gonna need to talk, budget before we just go out and randomly get these quotes, because we have a budget of about 300,000, and that's to cover all our curriculum, not just science. And so when we see something like 500,000, That's gonna make us deficit spending here, just on the curriculum.
Any of the curriculum for science now is expensive. I mean, when we were looking at what we were gonna be covering, one module, one year, amplified science was $2,000 just for one.
And is that a cost? Is that a cost that's gonna continue each year? So each module, when we replace it, it's gonna be $1,000 a year?
You have all of these. You're not gonna need to buy teachers and goggles and all this kind of thing.
And kids are from West.
Yeah. You remember.
Oh, I do remember that. My gosh.
Efficient, yes.
Just thinking of all the money. You didn't get anybody to use the teachers.
That is the PhD science. And then open science. A phone, open ed is 6-8.
You know, I can't even hear her.
Okay,
This is
Okay.
just kind of wasting our time.
okay, so hang on, do you wanna ask questions or you want me just to hang up?
I honestly don't. I want to thank her for your time, but I think honestly, we need to meet as a committee to really talk.
Because I can't hear her and I don't.
You gotta know what
what
you're
she's
getting
saying.
into. We're gonna spend a considerable amount of money and it really,
Needs to-
we need her here.
Yeah, so we needed you here, so they're gonna continue this discussion.
Put it up for mine.
No, it's not on anybody here.
Oh.
It's not on.
PDF list of materials, yeah. Yes, I do understand. So just trying to go through all these pages of 4 quotes that you said. I think what I got it down to was K6 would cost for 1 year, $132,816. And 7-8 for 1 year cost $84,748. That's what I have just going through your price quote, but the board is wanting more information. And this is probably one of the most expensive things we've seen, you know, and we do deal a lot with business here a lot. And even this is really high, so. Yeah. Probably gonna continue this, and I know we don't like to hear that because we wanted the materials here and we wanted to offer training, but we're just gonna have to get more information.
Too much.
Because it's too much, because we're ready to vote no, because it's just too much. It exceeds our budget. Correct.
No, it's 216,000.
It's still 216,000, you know, and our budget's 300 for all the curriculum. And we just spent 118 on math. So, you know, we gotta even go smaller than that. So we're gonna form a subcommittee and you get to be on it, and we're gonna call you and I'm gonna be on it, and and 2 board members, we're gonna meet, we're gonna hash this out. What's your availability like? You're supposed to be going on vacation, but on like the 17th or 18th, when I come back, we can meet. All right, I'll call you. Okay, thank you. I'll let you know. It'll be right when I come. I have interviews on the 17th for a new SELPA director at the county office, and then I'll be in on the 18th. And then I'll call you on that day. Okay. All right. Thanks, Karen.
So action item 3E is tabled. No action taken. We'll move to consent agenda to approve a plethora of minutes. Take it away, Ms. Magdalena.
Okay. We had lots of meetings, so I just submitted them all. And yeah, I don't know if you had time to go through them. You can approve them with edits and then you can review them and tell me what your edits are and I can make those changes. Or just have time and we can bring them back in August. It's up to you guys how you want to do it. You had a lot of meetings. These are all May and June meetings.
Yeah, we could just look at them, can't we just keep it going?
Oh, yeah, there's a shitload of them. Excuse my language.
Yeah, is there a way we can get these on a more monthly time period basis next year?
Hey, where this is monthly, this is 1 month. And
This is 1 month?
This is 1 month.
But I mean, I don't have a problem of approving them with edits if everybody agrees to look at them and submit their edits to Dana, then we don't have to continue them out and then,
That's fair.
you know, and I'll look at them too and submit our edits. I'm fine
And
with
some
that.
of it's governance training, you
It's
know,
not
that's
just,
just gonna
it's not
take a
gonna
minute.
take very long. It just looks,
It does,
it was a lot. Well, I got to one long one and I,
there's 2 long ones, the rest are just 1 page, 2 pages.
2 pages.
Okay.
But I do have a recommendation that I'd like to see from looking at all this. I think what we've, Dana, if we could get together with superintendent and pick a template that we like. And use and just name it the 2023-2024 school year and use the same template each time. So
We're not reinventing the
we're
wheel.
not and every, you know, and then we'll build consistency and it'll be way easier. for all
So
of
agree.
us.
And we can create, I looked at it, we can actually create ours, put it how we want it, and then it's that. So we need to do that.
Spoken wisely from trustee Hodge, aka the true clerk of the group.
I move that we approve the board minutes with edits A through J. Take it through also like K and I.
Are you moving the consent agenda?
Yeah, well,
So you
no,
don't have
because
discussion.
we're gonna do it with edits, so we don't want to approve those last 3 with edits.
So with.
We can approve
Motion on the floor is to approve all meeting minutes.
Yeah, minutes on.
For A to J.
Out of consent.
Do I have a second?
why can't we just motion to approve the consent agenda with edits to the minutes?
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Motion to approve the consent agenda with edits to the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the consent agenda A through
And
N with edits
to the
To the
minutes.
minute.
To the minutes.
to the minutes. We have a vote to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed?
Who was the
There
second?
is no, it was trustee Hodge. It was approved with no opposition, consent agenda for A through N minutes.
Are we turning off the YouTube now?
Yes. Okay,
You guys have to.
closed
Public-
session.
Make a motion. to
Public
go
comment
close.
on closed session items.